Hi guys, in this video I'm going to explain to you how to get as rich as a bank. But before you can get as rich as a bank, you need to understand how a bank first makes its money. So this is our bank here. I'm going to assume that you put £20 in there. So you put £20 into the bank, and then the bank lend it out at a greater interest rate. But they don't do it once, they can do it twice, or maybe 3 times. And yet you only put £20 in and they lend 60 out. And even more incredibly, when you check your bank account, it still says £20. So where did the other £60 come from? It's an illusion. This is how banking works. It didn't always work like this. This is called fractional reserve lending, and it wasn't always possible. Pre-1971, what used to happen was all countries followed something called the gold standard. And as I say, they all agreed that the notes they have issued must be exactly equivalent to the amount of gold they had sat in their national reserves. In our case, that was the Bank of England, and in America's case, it was Fort Knox. So for every pound you had in your wallet, there was a pound's worth of gold. In 1971, the Americans left the gold standard because they wanted to print more money, and they couldn't do so whilst being tied to that gold standard. So who makes the money now? Who decides what it's worth? The markets do. So believe this, money is a complete illusion. It does not represent anything. It's not tied to gold. It is a complete illusion and only holds its worth so long as everybody believes in the illusion. Now, the problem occurs when people stop believing in the illusion, and that happened in 2008. To really understand what happened in 2008, you have to understand another way that banks raise money. What they'll do is, once they've sold 500 mortgages or so, they'll bundle them up and they'll go to a finance company such as Lehman Brothers, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and say, look, I've got 500 mortgages here, they're all paying 4%. Can you raise a bond? That is to say, go to your marketplace, your investors, and say, look, here's a bond, we'll give you 3% on your money, and because there's 4% going in from the mortgage payers, you can keep 1% for yourself. Now, each investment has a rating system. The highest is AAA, and because these were secured on houses, they were AAA standard, because even if people stopped paying the mortgages, they could sell the property because they were secured on these properties which had an intrinsic value. And that works fine. But then banks started getting a bit greedy, and what they started doing was packaging what we call subprime mortgages. The AAA ratings were prime, that is, they were people who had secured jobs, maybe 2 incomes coming in a household, so it was unlikely they were going to default on their mortgage. But banks started packaging subprime. These are people who had bad credit ratings, little income, high rates of losing their jobs, and they were paying a higher interest rate, which is ironic because if you're more likely to lose your job, you shouldn't be getting charged a higher interest rate, but that's the way it works. So they were packaging another 500 subprime mortgages, going again to JP Morgan, Lehman Brothers, and saying these people are paying 8%. Why don't you market the bond again at 5%, and then you can keep 3%? And of course, they loved all that because they were making more money. And unfortunately, what they were doing was they were getting them past this AAA rating, so they were passing them on as really high secure investments where they were probably the worst investments. And that's when people stopped believing the illusion. And how that happened was that Lehman Brothers giving out 4% in their bonds, but people stopped paying the mortgage on these subprime mortgages because they were losing their jobs or whatever. So there was less money going in the pot, which again you might think, well, it's not so bad because we've still got a property, we can sell the property and get the money back off the property. Unfortunately, there were so many people defaulting, they were dumping these repossessed properties onto the marketplace that there was so much property, they fell in value. So not only were they not paying the mortgages, but they couldn't sell the houses for the value they were originally valued at. And for the first time in living memory, Lehman Brothers, a bank, went bust. Banks never went bust. But this time, first time in living memory, Lehman Brothers went bust, and it sent shockwaves across the world. You may remember in 2008 on the TV, the queues round the corner of people stood outside Northern Rock, wanted to get their deposit back, wanted to get their money back out of the bank because they didn't believe in the illusion anymore. Unfortunately, Northern Rock didn't have the money. Due to fractional reserve lending, they'd give it all away. So as they were handing cash out, the CEO of Northern Rock had to ring the Treasury and say, look, unless you send us more pound notes, by 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're going to run out of money. Now, the Bank of England, the government couldn't let that happen because that would push panic even more so in the marketplace. Imagine you just got your money paid in the bank and you went to put your card in there to withdraw some and there was none left. You can imagine the panic that would ensue. So the government couldn't let that happen. So they pick up the phone to the Bank of England and they say, print more money, and quite literally they were driving vans of money up to Northern Rock, push it in the back door, and as fast as it was going the back door, people were stood at counters and taking it back out. Now, because people had their money out the bank, they breathed a sigh of relief, and everybody started to believe the illusion once more. And then COVID came along, and COVID shut businesses down. COVID shut countries down. There was no money coming in. And again, people stopped believing in the illusion. Where's my money? How am I going to get paid? I haven't got a job. I can't, even if I have a job, I can't work because you've closed the country down. Again, there was an amount of panic, and the Chancellor acted very, very quickly. And what he did, he went to the Bank of England and he says, look, I'm going to need some money here. What I will do, if you lend me the money, I will give you 3% of it until such time it's all repaid. And the Bank of England said, well, okay, how much do you want? Richie Sunak said, 20 billion. The bank says, no problem, we'll take the lot. And that was a bond, much the same as the Lehman Brothers bond, except this one is a special bond. This one's issued by a government. It's not a corporate bond. It's not issued by a company that could go bust. It's underwritten by a government, and governments don't go bust. Well, unless you're Greece, of course. And in the olden days, they used to issue them on a bit of paper with a gold edge around it, a gilt, and they used to call them gilts. They don't call them gilts anymore. Obviously, it's all done digitally now. So there the government had another 20 billion, and they started giving it away again. They're giving it away in the form of furloughs, in the form of self-employed income support, bounce back loans, push the money back into people's pockets, and they all breathed a sigh of relief and started believing the illusion once more. So back to the premise of the video, how to get as rich as a bank. Well, I think I've proven that banks can't be trusted. If there's a chance that they can make more money, they'll do so without thinking a second about the consequences of people like ourselves. So I think we should just cut the middleman out. And like them giving us 1% and them getting a higher interest rate, I think we should do the same. I think we should put our money in a stocks and shares ISA and get 10%. Or you buy a property, and as I do, get 25%. Now, the beauty of doing it this way rather than putting the bank is you don't have to rely on the illusion of money, because your stocks and shares are held, you own part of a company, and a company has tangible assets. It has buildings, it has computers, it has machinery, it has land, it has people who work and then generate income, tangible stuff you can touch. The property is the same. Whilst its value may go up and down, occasionally it generally tends to go up, but it can go down. It's bricks and mortar. You can go there and touch it. You've bought land, you actually own the land, unlike the bank where your money is just an illusion. If you've enjoyed this video, guys, please give it a thumbs up. And remember that the money in your pocket has no value at all. It is merely an illusion. Thumbs up, guys. See you again. In the meantime, don't be stupid and don't be normal.